Disney didn't design this coaster. Instead, they bought it, threw in some theming, and called it a day. While not much, it was just enough to help bring in crowds, a fandom, and add a more thrilling attraction to the park's lineup. So much so that they did it again a few years later. Now though, both versions of these attractions are closed, and they have been since rethemed into a new existing version of them. The first version of this attraction opened back in 1999 in what was then still known as Disney MGM Studios. Park that, while interesting and exciting, lacked a lot of those high-thrilling additions and attractions to its lineup. And as part of this shift into providing more and also more thrilling attractions to its lineup, following the success of the Tower of Terror, Disney debuted Rock and Rollercoaster, starring Aerosmith. On paper, this was a great idea, as Disney was able to save on the cost of designing that roller coaster, simply buying an off-the-shelf model from Vekoma, while still adding a high-thrilling attraction to its parks. In addition to this, Disney would be able to bring in the fandom of Aerosmith, as the ride would be themed around guests entering G-Force Records, running into this then popular band, and then being offered backstage pass and a fast limo to get to their next concert. Along the way, guests will be blasted off from 0 to 57 miles per hour in 2.8 seconds, while also experiencing one of 5 different soundtracks for the ride to help encourage great re-rideability, while also all doing so inside of an enclosed building to help keep the ride operational during those rainy and stormy days. Due in part to this formula, it made the ride a massive success, and so much so that it existed for over 2 decades inside both of those parks. However, over time, Disney started to see a marginal return on investment of having the attraction inside of its lineup. As while the actual coaster was still a popular addition to it, there were parts of it that weren't as popular anymore, and Disney could save money as well as increasing the return on investment by closing and retheming this popular attraction. Retheming an attraction inside of a park is a great way to help increase its draw once again. As while the ride still may be popular, you can really give it that extra boost and expand its overall popularity by replacing the existing theming around the ride, while also saving the cost on redoing the infrastructure of the ride system itself. To further sweeten the deal, Disney also had that extra incentive to stop paying the licensing fees for this increasingly less relevant and known band to have it anchor its popular roller coaster attraction inside of its parks. Likewise, by retheming this attraction, Disney was also able to increase the overall theming and draw for its attraction in its lineup of its parks, to help make it on par with a lot of the newer modern Disney attractions as they come to debut. For example, while I do love roller coasters and found that exciting, fascinating launch into this one be a great addition and offering for the roller coaster, its overall theming was relatively minor and obviously lacked a desire for me to go and ride that ride every time I'm at the park. Seeing this writing on the wall, Disney did eventually decide to pull the plug on this attraction inside of its parks. The first version of this attraction closed can be found over at Disneylandparis in their Studios Park, a park that is now known as Disney's Adventure World. And this was the first phase of a multi-year and massive investment into the park to help it feel less cheap. And the first phase of it was adding Adventures Campus to that park and resorts lineup. Here, guests would not only have the great opportunities to meet and interact with several of the well-known Marvel characters that Disney does own, but also have the ability to have an overall higher quality theming to the overall area. And to do this, Disney chose to incorporate Rock and Rollercoaster into these plans, and to have it act as that land's major e-ticket ride, this time seeing a massive reimagining of the existing roller coaster, keeping the coaster's track itself, but overall a massive reimagining of the overall facade, story, and ride experience. After seeing the outcome of this decision, Disney decided that it was time to do it once again, but this time over at Hollywood Studios in the last version of this attraction, in which Disney would remove Aerosmith but keep the overall story while also increasing the overall theming for the experience, this time by removing Aerosmith and replacing it with the Muppets, to allow for that quick retheme to help make it a new and exciting attraction for the parks lineup in 2026, to help keep the parks and resorts overall popular as well as competitive with Epic Universe opening down the road last year and still attracting massive crowds to this day. When looking at the perspective of the overall fans in the theme park community, there is a great mix between those that are really looking forward to this new addition and attraction to the park's lineup and those that will miss Aerosmith, one of which is a great testament to just how well the ride did. And while there is the sad mixture of having Aerosmith go, there is also a high hope into what Disney can do and improve upon the space. And even with the great little bits that they have already shown, seems to be a great improvement into this old roller coaster and give it new life into the park. In addition to this, outside of having one side or the other, there's also the great mixture between Aerosmith overstaying its welcome inside the parks. And while it did develop that hardcore fan base to this day, there's also a sentiment amongst fans that this ride was meant to eventually switch themes as a whole into those new characters and music. And this ride does seem to be a great way to provide the new offering for the attraction, but also doing so in a way in which it keeps those older fan base, as well will lose some of Aerosmith's fans. The overall story beats of G-Force Records and its story remains strong today. By moving the Muppets over to this new area of the park and giving them a new exciting attraction, they are also able to not only stop paying those licensing fees to use Aerosmith, but are now promoting their own brand like they did with the Marvel version of this attraction. Furthermore, this would allow Disney to still keep the Muppets inside of its parks after it closed the Muppet Mini Land and Muppet Vision to make way for a new Monsters Inc. themed land. But that's a story for another episode, so subscribe so you don't miss it. Likewise, it will also keep some of the popular re-rideability aspects to the ride itself, having the ride vehicles tied to specific songs, as guests will now have the opportunity to experience one of 5 different new songs for the attraction. Unlike the Marvel version, this new attraction will almost be more of an overlay, but still seeing a drastic increase to the overall theming, now simply just seeing the Muppets replace Aerosmith, and overall seeming like the pre-show, seeing drastic enhancements to it, as guests will join audio animatronics as well as screens portraying the electric mayhem to help get them onto this limo before blasting off into Hollywood into the concert. And as a cherry on top to all of this, Disney would also have the ability down the road to increase the overall seeming for this individual area. It is kind of an awkward area of the park, as in a resort that has such massive and high quality areas of seeming, this area really felt cheap. And while it is technically themed to a music recording studio, the overall entrance to this area just feels like another attraction facade and lead up to it, and barely even sells that you are entering G-Force Records. In addition to this, there's also that separate building not directly tied to this music studio, instead a rather generic flex-based building currently home to a villain space show to provide that villain's anchoring for the resort while they continue to build a permanent home over at the Magic Kingdom. Down the road though, after this land does open, I could see this space being completely reimagined once again, this time by removing the villains and replacing it with a modified version of Muppet Vision 3D, providing fans that great opportunity to experience that film once again, but this time in a modified format that would have reduced capacity, as well as could take other measures to help reduce its overall operating costs. In addition to this, Disney could drastically re-theme this existing area to be themed to a Muppet Studio area, in a format that would allow for even more return on investment for this existing area of the park, and another chance to receive those returns on this future Muppet version of Rockin' Rollercoaster. In the end, Rockin' Rollercoaster was still a great and solid attraction in the park's lineup, and while it did have its weaknesses, like the overall cheap feeling for certain areas to it, did do exactly what it promised to investors, providing them and the park that great e-ticket ride to the attraction's lineup, bringing in a more adult audience seeking those higher thrills inside the park, as well as a brand new fandom as well in the form of Aerosmith, doing so in a way taking out 2 birds with 1 stone while also achieving other metrics as well, like incorporating seeming around a ride that Disney did not design, all while doing so in an iconic format that remains strong today, whether it be a modified version to it with having new music and characters, or a complete reimagining, both of which still stand strong, attracting those guests while also doing so in a way to provide that perfect stepping stone and use for what the parks need it for today.